The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. As I record the show tonight, tomorrow will be Thanksgiving Day, and it will be my birthday on Thanksgiving Day. Happens, I think, every 4 years or so. So yeah, that's going on tomorrow. And I'm probably the only person that doesn't really just celebrate my birthday. I don't make it a big deal. I'll share it with all of you that listen to this program and just make a point of it. I don't ask for much. Hell, I don't even ask much from family or anything like that. I just ask for a healthy life and, continue to just do what I want to do. Kind of dictate where I want to do things in terms of my career, having my family around happy and healthy. Those are the things that are important to me. Not status and all this stuff that everybody where I live here in South Florida thinks is so important. And I don't need the attention and the adulation of so many different people. I mean, it doesn't matter to me anyway. And maybe I'm being a little bit cynical. Maybe I'm being just a little bit, negative. But that's okay. It's the way I operate. I've been like this for a long time. But it's the kind of drive that I had that puts me in here to do this show every week. And most importantly, during the holidays, I'm not going to miss a show. So for those that might take a time off, I don't, right? And the best part is, Christmas and New Year's and all that happens on a Saturday. So I'm not going to miss anything with these shows. All my podcasts are still going to be on as scheduled straight to the new year because I do it that way. If I was working in radio, I would still be working at the station and doing stuff live because that's just the way I operate. So I would ask for one thing of you. If you decide to do something for my birthday, I'm not going to ask for anything more than this. So I have the show on Apple Podcasts. And if you subscribe to the Wrestling is Real podcast on Apple Podcasts, rate and review. And if you catch the YouTube version of this show, drop a like. Maybe the show will get recommended. The episode might get recommended. Or, subscribe to the channel. YouTube.com/JBRASCO951. I'll spell it a little bit slower. YouTube.com/JBRASCO951. Pretty simple as that. So, I don't even know if I'm going to even have a cake for birthday, but it doesn't matter. It's not important to me. I'm sure all of you make a big deal out of it, but, there's a lot of reasons why I don't. And it's okay. It's to mark that it was a long time ago that I was born, and that's all it is. And it's nice to be around family for a day like that. And Thanksgiving is a good tie-in for that. It's not about presents to me. It's not about any of that stuff. It really doesn't matter. My birthdays, I'd rather keep them quaint and low profile and low key, and that's just like it is. I want to be basically an introvert on my birthday. Or what does it matter? When I have people that will go on my Facebook page and they'll go ahead and send birthday wishes there, okay, good for you. Because that's where we are right now. In a lot of cases, it's not like going to get a whole lot of phone calls. No, and that's okay. I don't expect it. And that's my birthday rant. I figured I'd put that in here to start off tonight because that's what's point of mind to me right now. But there's other stuff that's on my mind. Namely, what I started off with during the Survivor Series post show, which I did on Sunday night, going into Monday, almost 90 minutes. I think it went a little more than 90 minutes. And I just kept going. And I might have just pulled a little more than what I had planned to go ahead and talk about on this show. But this show, I'm not short of any content. I should be able to get an hour pretty easily out of all what I have tonight. I'm going to continue my thought process on how WWE is doing casting calls. They're playing Hollywood with what they're doing in terms of their sports entertainment. What you're realizing now with WWE is that sports entertainment is now being better redefined. In sports entertainment, you can have much more product placement. In sports entertainment, what you do have that is sports related is athletic type bodies. You have athletic looking competition that's being done in an athletic style professional grade wrestling ring, a squared circle, and you're getting fans that probably do watch a lot of their sports besides professional wrestling. And I might have grown up on it, or they might have an interest in it because they're interested in other novelty sports, say, the Olympics, or if you say the UFC. I would say that WWE is probably being portrayed a little more like a combat sport, but then also more like an American Gladiators, more like, what's another word? Kind of it's a spectacle. It's an event. It's almost like how you would watch Cirque du Soleil. It would be like how you would watch the circus, Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, you might remember. It's like that. The stars that you see at a WWE show are attractions. They're not just athletes, they're attractions. They are character-driven attractions. They are box office marquee, personalities. That's the idea. And it's not so much you're creating larger-than-life stars that the stars mean more than the brand. Because even when they have Roman Reigns as such a high-level star in WWE, he still, when it comes down to it, Roman Reigns is not a standalone. He is a main star because he is under the banner of WWE. That's what it is. Becky Lynch the same way. And anybody that came from that banner also gets in that same vein. It's what they decided to do. So as what I talked about on Sunday night, it wasn't even about Survivor Series. But there were a couple things we could take away from the Survivor Series show that were going to be built towards storylines to day one, the next pay-per-view that comes up, or anything else they decide to do in terms of programs that are going forward up until WrestleMania season, which we know will probably take place right around day one. And then really day one is the first one, but then after that, that's when we start getting the build to the Royal Rumble. And then we get the WrestleMania season that we all know. It will be in several years, it will be our traditional WrestleMania season because we will actually have crowds leading up to WrestleMania itself as a 2-night event going into Dallas, Texas, or Arlington, Texas, and AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. That's the plan. Now, how do we know that's the direction that WWE is trying to do? Well, there's a story that came from Variety.com that talked about this, and what WWE did, which is very interesting, they decided to do an upfront presentation. Now, let's talk about this. So, upfront, it's where a particular network, normally, television, cable, and whatnot, usually during the late summer, going into the fall season, they will then have what's called their upfronts. What is upcoming for the upcoming broadcast year of said network. And what they're doing is they are targeting advertisers, because the advertisers then get to go and find out what is on the calendar for WWE and how can they get involved. And what kind of audience are they going to be able to reach with wrestling? It's a very traditional thing that's done in television. And this is something that WWE is doing right now. I don't know if this is what's done before, but the fact that it's being done here sounds like it's a Nick Khan move altogether. It's not a bad move at all. It's something that really would help them. Is this going to help in the long run the creative process and what the presentation is of the show? Probably not yet. But we are still getting the early processes of what they're doing. And like I said, we are getting a better understanding of what they're doing in terms of bringing in talent. They're not going to go the route. And listen, for those that want to go ahead and say that whatever Triple H made is being destroyed, that the Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and the team, they're trying to erase anything that Triple H created. I don't look at it that way. It just happens to be a victim of circumstance. Because what Triple H did, and I've said this last week, when I talked about the WWE way versus the AEW way, what we're getting now, even more defined, is professional wrestling going forward in 2021 and sports entertainment going in 2021. That's where we are. That's what's happening here. Sports entertainment is being better redefined than ever. And they're going to go all in on it with a vague attachment to wrestling and not professional wrestling. That's what they want to do. So the idea of this upfront presentation is a very good indicator of that. So let me take from Joe Otterson of Variety.com. WWE touts massive reach and broad distribution in an upfront presentation at Survivor Series. So at the Barclays Center on Sunday night, WWE hosted an upfront presentation for advertisers that laid out the company's wide appeal with audiences. Now, this is not doing a whole season. What the upfront presentation was here was, and this is the idea. So you know how WWE likes to do these long-term deals. Peacock, you have a long-term broadcast streaming deal for their content. NBC Universal, they have one for the USA Network and for the pay-per-views. Well, that's NBC Universal. Fox has theirs with SmackDown. And so you have very long established, secure broadcast rights that have been put in place. And that's a testament of what they're doing. And it's also to the credit Nick Khan that created this. And so what he's doing right now is he's taking the same idea of the deals and contracts that were made for what he did in terms of the broadcasting rights. Now we're going to get the advertisers locked in. So it's not going to be just this normal relationship where NBC Universal would do things where USA Network would work together to get like pizza companies or get other people. They're trying to go after a bigger piece of the pie. They don't want to just get movie premieres. They don't want to just get some random, trolley gummy bears. They don't want to get just Domino's and Pizza Hut and, Arby's and all these other fast food places. They want to take a step up. They want to take a step up and get the type of deals they've been getting with Progressive. Not just Cricket Wireless. Maybe go a step further. Let's get T-Mobile or let's get Apple. Let's get, get the insurance, get other insurance companies involved. Try to get, there's a lot of other ways they can go. But they also want to just be able to go and target a bigger audience and other stuff that could be, young adult or it could be 25 to 54 years olds. And who knows what other products they could put out there. And product placement, because we know that WWE has already shown a panache of doing commercials with the wrestlers to promote products. We see Dollar General with the Street Profits and Bianca Belair. We've seen, KFC did the stuff with the KFC Colonel Sanders and, the Miz dressing up and Dolph Ziggler dressing up. There's a lot of things that they've done these kind of deals with. And, Charlotte Flair with Cricket Wireless. We see that all going on. Kofi Kingston with Cricket Wireless. So the embedding of superstars in commercials, creating those and working together and collaborating on certain deals that will run on WWE programming. And could also run on other things, but depending on how it works. Now, listen to this. The stats given by Stephanie McMahon. We, as fans, look at the smaller picture. And it, in the eyes of the corporate World Wrestling Entertainment, the creative part is, there's an importance to it, but it's not the priority. The priority is they already have what they built upon, and the brand itself is extremely healthy and strong. But what they're doing is, and regardless of what I sent you about that hit piece on the stock market from Motley Fool last week, that doesn't matter. That's, it's something that's being said out there, but it's up to WWE to go ahead and be able to tackle that and be able to go and, respond back to it. So you have this upfront presentation. Investors will be looking at this. Advertisers, ad agencies, who have lots of advertisers under their belt, ad representation firms. A lot of different people are behind this now, looking at what can we do with this brand, much like we do relationships with the NFL. And remember, it's not just for profit. Look at all the non-profit stuff they do. Make-A-Wish, Connor's Cure, Susan G. Komen. They just re-upped their partnership with the Special Olympics. All the goodwill and all this professional work that's done from a media brand like WWE it's not even so much where they're doing their own stuff for wrestling. It's what they're able to do for other things, regardless if it's on television or not. And not to mention the social media reach that this company has as well. So we can look at what's going on regardless of what we see as what is basically the raw cut of product. We're watching live television, 5 hours a week of what they're doing. And most importantly for WWE is when they're promoting their pay-per-views, which is really what they're focusing on the most, they just need to make sure that out of all that footage, they're able to get certain things they can use for repurposing for social media, for using for promotions for their big events, and to promote clips and things where they can edit out and they can do some post-production on it, whatever they want for promoting events, for promoting, prior to matches on a pay-per-view or on the show itself, or putting the clips straight up on social media. And they can fix it and they can rework it and they can, tighten it up as needed for easy consumption to the audience. And because remember, there's a lot of people that are not watching the live TV show. There's no reason to anymore. We're in an on-demand society when it comes to media. So WWE can kind of just be a little bit, they can be a little bit loose and they could be filling time on television because of what they have to do. They're honoring their requirement. And they can do things where they can get certain stars over without all the extra stuff that goes on with a match or with all the extra stuff that's going on in a promo or any kind of segments that we get that are just long-winded and just need to fill time because they have it down to a science. Back to this upfront. Here's what Stephanie McMahon said. Quote, we have massive reach and broad distribution available in over 900 million homes, 180 countries, 28 languages, and in a non-pandemic era, over 500 live events per year. Now, all that's true. So, she's not quoting how many of those homes are actually watching WWE, whether taped, on demand, or what. But they have broadcast deals in over 180 countries, in 28 languages, and this reaches over almost 1 billion homes. That's all true. Probably looks good on a slide, and that's what they did. These advertisers are going to just eat that up, but they're also going to. But that's also trying to give some metrics, trying to give a little bit of context to what they're doing and what the size and scale of what WWE is. And then in the elevator pitch, quote, that gives us the opportunity to engage with your brand globally, nationally, or locally. Basically, right there, it's like I said about the Olympics. The Olympics have the reach globally. And so, like, if McDonald's wants to be a sponsor of the Olympics, they know what kind of reach they're going to get. All these different languages, all these different homes, all of it. We can't say in particular they're going to be engaged in all these homes. We know that's not true. We know that if we can even say with any real credibility how many homes are probably actually engaged to it, I'd probably say less than 10 million. Out of 900 million, she says, I'd probably peg it at 10 million worldwide. But that doesn't matter because they're looking at, they're doing things to expand their reach and to create, a change in their format and the change in of what they're offering as sports entertainment. They're redesigning it. They're reinventing it in something that they did themselves. They're reinventing it as we speak. Now, Stephanie McMahon would go on to tell those in attendance that WWE produces over 2,300 hours of content per year. That's an amazing number. 2,300 hours of all the live shows, the documentaries, all the other footage they have as well, and what they're doing with it in terms of content. She also praises the company's social media efforts with over 1 billion followers across all platforms. Now, that's that social media initiative I think I talked back around 2013, I think it was, where they decided, okay, we're going to build all across all those platforms. They didn't go through some Indian or Philippine outsource to try to get those followers. Those followers, for the most part, those are organic followers. They're people that are actually following the brand. Now, there's going to be some duplication among Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all those. Sure. But 1 billion followers. You can actually document that. So if they want to do advertising, maybe they're not going to get them watching the live TV show, which I said might reach 10 million, might reach 10 million homes. And that's being very generous. Probably much closer to 5 if we're going to be honest with ourselves. But either way, if they're doing promotion through the social media channels, the social media platform itself, the reach they have on all those platforms, that is a monster. And that's the credit to the social media team they have. They've done an excellent job. And I've said this over and over, an excellent job of building their social media. It's good. It's slick. It's well produced. They do a damn good job. And to the credit also, their broadcast partners, when it comes to SmackDown on Fox, when it comes to USA Network and NBC Universal in general, they do a damn good job of promoting as well. Plus, using all of their properties, like when it comes to SmackDown, I watch your Fox Sports, and you can watch it in college basketball, you can watch it in football, you can watch it in college football. You'll see the commercials, you'll see the tie-ins, you'll see the lower thirds on the screen. It's all over the place. So they're getting cross promotion throughout all their brands, but WWE is a promotional machine, and their social media is the crux of it. I mean, where I fall, like with my full-time commitment, we're not putting out so much in terms of advertising. For WWE, they don't have to buy advertising. They have all the relationships to work off of. So they make good ads for all their shows on any of the NBC Universal channel network of stations. Same thing with Fox. They have that all available to them. And WWE themselves does the same thing through the social media. Now, she also went on to say, and I remember talking about this when it came to Instagram, 9 out of the top 15 most followed female athletes in the world across all social platforms are WWE superstars. What she says right here, it's just bombshell after bombshell when it comes to advertisers. These corporate types, they're going to hear this. They're going to be like, wow, why are we not working with these guys? Let me move along. She says also, we are the number 1 most followed sports brand on TikTok. We're the number 1 sports channel on YouTube and the 6th most viewed channel on YouTube around the world. Yeah, that's all true. Then she goes on, we have a young, diverse fan base. Now, we might not feel that here when we hear about 50 plus audiences here in America, but that's not talking about the rest of the world. She continues to say, quote, over 75% of our fans are in that sweet spot, 18 to 49 years old. 40% of our audience is women, and we over-index, which means they what's the best word I'm looking for? They have larger than expected concentration of audiences, both African American and Hispanic. So ethnic. But you have to remember like this, African American, that represents 13% of the American public? And I think Hispanic represents 30%. You're reaching a large audience, a young buying audience. Because anybody who is, whether it's African American, Hispanic, Asian, white, whatever, they all have discretional, they all have spending. They all have money to spend, and they have money to spend on big ticket items if they want to. 18 to 49 years old. So now, Stephanie McMahon was followed on stage by Claudine Lillian. She is the head of global partnerships and sales. She reminded people that the WWE permeates our world probably more than you realize. Now, I have not heard of this lady before, but I want to go and look her up real quick so we can find out what she's all about. Well, she was hired in April. I don't know if we ever talked about this. She previously held leadership roles across Fox Corporation, Fox Sports, and Fox Network Group. Worked as a senior VP of client management and solutions at Fox Sports, and would report to Stephanie McMahon. So she's been here 7 months. And right away, her role was going to be a key member for the company's senior management team overseeing day-to-day operations and leading the sales organization for WWE and expanding the roster of sponsors and promotional partnerships. And some of her claims to fame at Fox was she's one of the ones that did a lot of work in the sales and marketing efforts for some of Fox Sports properties, including SmackDown, Fox Bet Super 6, among others. And she has done work selling Fox Sports properties in the NFL, Major League Baseball, NCAA, NASCAR, and UFC. Yeah. Big time deal. So this lady is working on all these deals, like with the Pizza Huts of the world and, the Progressives of the world. All these different deals have been brought on. I wouldn't be surprised if she's not been overseeing her team that's been bringing those deals in. And when they do, those are probably millions of dollars at a time. And long-term deals for quarters, so like every 3 months or maybe every year. And they could just say, okay, we're going to put this deal together. And it's just like they would work like like an ad representation firm. The idea would be, well, we're going to buy your advertising in bulk. We're going to buy bulk inventory time. So when you see we have 18 minutes an hour on Raw and about the same on SmackDown? I mean, I was looking at it, when you break down Raw, the 3-hour show, yeah, they got 54 minutes, of commercial time. 54 of those 3 hours, 54 minutes, it's all commercials. So they have lots of inventory to put all those advertisers on. So we don't like the fact they have all these commercials, but they have advertisers they can put on there because of these big bulk deals they've made. Now they go along. Now, Claudine, she goes on to say, quote, whether it's NBA star Joel Embiid imitating Triple H's signature DX chop, my son doing his best Randy Orton pose on a family trip, we can do things that traditional sports and entertainment companies can't. Whether it's Bad Bunny or bottled water, WWE creates immersive experiences for our partners. And they're talking about the water was the one that Miz and Morrison was using as the whole Johnny Drip Drip thing was going on. Remember that? Yeah. And Bad Bunny getting him on board and getting to do that was just like a luck thing, but, being brought on there to promote his tour and to be able to go and do what he was doing. That's another thing that's got to be said. Moving along, just as we bring our content to life across all our channels, we want to do the same for your brands. That's why we say we don't have sponsors, just partners. Because sponsorship is passive, but partnership is collaborative and dynamic. We have, this is another stat we don't know about, 200 premium advertisers, over 200 premium advertisers across multiple categories that have recognized the value of this approach. Damn. And then you have WWE President and Chief Revenue Officer, Nick Khan. He does a Q&A with the host of the event, which is actually an ESPN announcer, Joe Tessitore. He's done a little bit of Funny Monday Night Football. He's done NCAA stuff. He's pretty good. And Khan spoke about the recent decision to move some pay-per-views to Saturday nights, including the success they had with a strategy for SummerSlam in Las Vegas earlier this year, marking the first time the event was held on a Saturday. In another first, they recently released their entire 2022 pay-per-view schedule, and Khan said that SummerSlam was also held in a stadium for the first time since 1992, something Khan said the company will do more going forward. Quote, for the first time ever in 2022, we're going to do 5 nights at stadiums. Typically Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and that's not including Saudi Arabia, mind you. That's just counting the domestic shows. It's not counting international. I don't know if that includes the show that would be at, in Wales or in England? I'm not sure if that includes that. But 5 stadium shows, he said, next year. They said it's because they saw a gap in the marketplace where we could do more. And then he discussed rights for major sports programming such as the NFL, NHL, and Premier Soccer League. Premier Soccer League just got a broadcast rights deal with NBC for $1 billion, I think it is, to carry their sports. NFL, of course, is the leader with the rights now worth $10 billion in the most recent 11-year deal. The NHL, which just got renegotiated this year with TNT and ESPN, Nick Khan pointed out that a decade ago, the Hockey League commanded
approximately $200 million per year. That's where WWE was before this last deal. Remember that. Before Nick Khan came in, that's what the NHL was getting. And that's what WWE was doing as well. But now, the NHL can claim, and they have a deal now worth $625 million a year. Triple. And then the English Premier League with NBC, it's worth $460 million instead of the $450 million. But still, that's a lot of damn money that's been put out there. Quote, you're seeing these numbers continue to go up. I'm quoting Nick Khan. You're seeing them go up for properties whose ratings are up, for properties whose ratings are stable, and even for properties whose ratings are down. And one of the things that sets WWE apart, Khan said, is that the fact that the company's programming is on 52 weeks a year, unlike traditional sports leagues. Quote, there are no other sports-like programming that goes like that. And for our sponsors, it allows you to stay present in the minds of fans long beyond the end of the NFL season. I wouldn't be surprised to get a few more large, partnership deals as they talk about. All that they're doing right there is effective. You might complain. About what they're doing in terms of the way that the creative is being done and how smart the people are here. Sure, you can do that. But the truth is that it's much smarter than you think. What they're doing right now is really damn effective. They're playing very smart right now. That's a lot of damn money they're about to bring in. I mean, we all complain about the fact, some of the IWC complains about the fact that, well, look at all this money they're bringing in. Yeah. Why not? Free enterprise, free market. We don't like the fact that the stars have been leaving, but it is not because it's for sale. It's not because it's a vendetta against Triple H. It's because they are redefining what they're doing as a company. They're reinventing the wheel that Vince McMahon created. They want to go more sports entertainment again. They want to do more to abandon professional wrestling. So for all of my wrestling podcast brethren out there, all the fan casters, hey, God bless you, as always. But when you constantly come to the point and say, why is it that Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Andrade El Idolo, Malachi Black, looking at Johnny Gargano possibly leaving soon, Sami Zayn leaving soon, Kevin Owens leaving soon, and seeing other names like Keith Lee or Bronson Reed or, Karrion Kross or Bray Wyatt. And you're saying to yourself, okay, they don't want wrestling backgrounds anymore. So if we're starting to see now, which has been said already with NXT, that the younger stars are being brought up against the stars that have been established on the NXT brand that were formerly black and yellow brand, well, now they're going into the role at War Games where the old against the new. And as we probably will guess, yes, the young upstarts will get the upper hand. Tommaso Ciampa is not long for that NXT championship. Being one of the elder statesmen of that group will not probably be that long. And we don't know what the status will be after all this, or if he does get to stay in some way, shape, or form. Same thing with Johnny Gargano. Same thing with Pete Dunne. Same thing with LA Knight, possibly. Same thing with, just pick them. And even some of the women wrestlers we know as well could also be in the same vein. We looked at who got released last week. There's a thing where they don't want to go ahead and bring people on for professional wrestling and then make something out of them that is sports entertainment or their version of sports entertainment. Because what do we say about the professional wrestlers that go to WWE? They get watered down. Don't we always say that? They always get watered down. They get brought to a certain way. They have to learn the WWE style. And now, instead of trying to go ahead and take these stars who are very good professional wrestlers, but in the style of WWE, it is trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Like, they have been trying to make that happen for all this time, and they're not going to do it anymore. And I'm sure the encouragement of the team now that's in corporate, that is not, they're not in the, the Nick Khan's of the world. He's involved in sports, but not in the training performance level. He's in the marketing promotions area, and he's very good at it. So it's not going to be his department to go and deal with that. It's still going to be Vince McMahon that still needs to be able to go ahead and create the stars that he wants. And under his team, he has to be able to do that. Now, do they have some stars already on the main roster that fit the mold? Yes. But they need a lot more. Like, that's the obvious part. And they can still put things together to put together a WrestleMania if they have to. They can still do things where they can... even last year's WrestleMania, it wasn't bad at all. I mean, we all kind of pretty much really enjoyed it. But there's also just the things that we have to realize that, with a very few exceptions to the rule now, they want to go in a route where they can bring in stars from different fields, they can make people that they just need to learn how to wrestle. And the style of wrestling that the WWE asks for can be simple. And that's what they're talking about. Because they know that all the stars that they're looking to bring in on board now, they're all athletically inclined. Not just they have the bodies, but they can also perform. They're agile. They're flexible. They can do what is required. And if they are shown just enough to make it called wrestling, then they can do that. I mean, we do talk about the fact of, look at the stars we've had that have been so big. How technically erudite have they been? I can give you names. Really, ask yourselves the question. And I'm not taking anybody down, and I'm saying that none of these stars could not be able to go and create a certain level of professional wrestling that everybody else will enjoy. But, we can look at NCW's One Night Stand and look at how they, shit on Batista, shit on John Cena, right? They might not look necessarily at Brock Lesnar in a certain way, but Brock Lesnar gets a lot of clout because he was an MMA guy. He did go to MMA and he succeeded very well and came back. But you look at them, you look at Hulk Hogan. I mean, there was a thing where some of the bigger stars that you have, they didn't have to go all over the top. Like, most of Undertaker's career early on, he didn't have to go and do a whole lot of technical wrestling. Was not doing, MMA style moves at the time. He wasn't doing, he wasn't flipping over all the place, doing a lot of top rope stuff. He was playing the big guy. I mean, there's a fashion where people have a certain way of what they can do. Mark Henry, how many moves did certain people have? We always talk about that. WWE style has to have like 5 moves. We talked about Triple H's 5 moves. We talked about John Cena's 5 moves. We talked about Randy Orton's 5 moves. And they've always kind of had a little deviations here and there, but for the most part, it's the same format. It's the same formula for each. They have a number of moves that they do, and that's what they are. Even AJ Styles has that now. Don't we all see that? So there's certain stars that must follow the formula. It's WWE style. And if you make certain stars that are not heavyweights, that don't have the particular build, then what do you expect of them? I mean, I know you like them. They made it here. Hey, all the respect to everybody that made it here and succeeded. Look, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn have had great careers in WWE. But if you probably had Vince McMahon be really honest about it, he'd look at Sami Zayn and say, you know what? The guy's flabby. Look at him. He's kind of out of shape. Kevin Owens, he's a fat guy. He's been like that the whole time. And there's only room for maybe like 1 or 2 of those at any time on the main roster. Otis couldn't stay that big. For an anomaly, he was like a certain way. But look what he did. He lost weight. He got himself in shape. Keith Lee was a certain size and girth. And it doesn't matter to WWE because image matters. They care about the image. They care about the look. If we're going to market somebody on, it's like, who's going to look good on a Wheaties box? It's kind of like that old school mentality. What do we have them, promoting like, oh, we have them, wearing fashion, some kind of clothing line, or whether it's, watches, whether it's, jewelry, whether it's, whatever. I mean, you want what what Madison Avenue is going to consider aesthetically pleasing. And let's just say it like this. I mean, look, when you look at the women that they definitely like to promote, first and foremost, they look at Becky Lynch. They look at Sasha Banks, absolutely. You look at Bianca Belair, absolutely has the look, everything, the entire package. When you look at Charlotte Flair, same deal. And they just have certain stars that can be done. You can do anything with them in media. Print, digital, camera, whatever. And also, as we've talked about before on this show, when you look at the stars that they have, and you're saying to yourself, man, Becky Lynch can get herself an appearance on Billions, or Sasha Banks, she can get on Mandalorian and be on there for a series. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. John Cena, damn it. Look, that guy, he's no shortage of work for that man. The Rock, that guy is a billionaire, basically, many times over. This guy is multi-talented and an amazing entrepreneur in so many different ways. Like The Rock has gotten everything he wanted and more. Batista is thriving in Hollywood now. And that's the level. And those are the stars that WWE can take claim of and say, look what they did. Look what they've been able to do. And that's what you say. And these are pretty heady things that we're doing. Because remember, before Nick Khan, what was it that WWE was doing? They were doing the B movies. They were putting out movies with their stars, but they were, they had their own studios. They had their own music division. They had their own recording label. And, they put stuff out there, but we all said it was cheesy, was all kind of rubbish, right? We look at Knucklehead with Big Show. We look at what was that Triple H movie when it was the Chaperone? Wasn't that what it was? And you look at John Cena in the Marine, or The Miz doing the Marine, or Randy Orton doing the Marine, all that. And then if you had people doing music, like, oh, okay, so Elias puts out an album through WWE, right? And it's like, there's not making a big deal about that. But now, when you look at anything that WWE is behind, it doesn't look Bush League. It's not even close. What they're doing with these stars, under what Nick Khan's trying to do, is quality content. That's what they're doing. It's not a wrong way of thinking. What they need to do is they need to build the stars. As for the storylines within the shows themselves, it's going to probably be secondary going forward. Now, it can't be, because they have to build these damn shows. They don't have to do that right now. They need to build on stars as we speak. They have to do that. That's what they're trying to do right now with NXT 2.0. We know there's a handful of stars they are actually working on. Believe it or not, they're actually trying to do things with certain stars to build them up. When you look at a Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley to some extent, Bianca Belair. When you look at, say, Liv Morgan, Aaliyah, even Ricochet even gets a little bit of a rub like that. Austin Theory, Dominic Mysterio. Like, there are some people they're working on that hopefully they can try to make something out of. Like, they're actually working on trying to build some stars. They are integrating some younger or some fresher talent into the mix, believe it or not. And there are still some stars that absolutely have star power that work well within the system and can be brought up. Look, Big E's not that far. They've done some work to help make him a strong champion, but I haven't liked this title reign. It's nothing against him, but he's attached to New Day, and that New Day gimmick is impossible. He's typecast. There's no way Big E could go ahead and be removed out of that. You couldn't make that guy heel, and you can't let him be such a serious star that when he goes up against Roman Reigns, that's like the attitude, that's the mantra that he is. It's only when the time brings upon. But other than that, this is the peak of where Big E is. He doesn't go any higher than this. But this is the pinnacle of where he is going to be in the company. This is the highest he can ever go. But I don't think he'll be somebody that will keep up at that level all the time. Now, if he gets to a point where Randy Orton is, where Randy Orton has been like, anytime you need to go ahead and get that guy up and elevated, Randy Orton can still go up for the title, and it's still relevant, and that guy still matters, and the guy still 20 years or so, and all the times he's been on TV, you still take Randy Orton seriously after all this time, and that makes him a damn true first ballot Hall of Famer, because that guy means everything. Like, you just can't help it. And I always thought that John Cena and Randy Orton was always at the level of John Cena, and I do think he is today. It doesn't matter. And so there are some stars that are ready to be put up, but what they have to do is they're going to have to work on building some stars and storylines that lead up to these big stadium matches. You're going to have to fill those seats. It's a big task. So that will force the creative side of WWE to actually enact. They have to actually have a plan in place. They got to get something going. And we already know they're definitely working on stars down in NXT. When you look at Toxic Attraction, you look at Braun Breaker, you look at Von Wagner, believe it or not, you're seeing them doing something. They're actually trying to make a difference. Meanwhile, everybody is upset, justifiably upset, over all the releases, the changes being made. What you got to look at is what's actually being done. You have to look differently on how the bread is being made. Might not mean your kind of bread, but they're trying to build something that will go in terms of a larger audience. Like, what they're actually doing is they're trying to make something that everybody's going to be into. It will not be your cup of tea. Some things will, and that's it. AEW, it's a different story. But AEW now, what's more important for them and what's more important for the rest of the wrestling promotions out there, you can see what Impact Wrestling is doing now. You can see what AEW is doing now. MLW, what they're doing now. I'm not sure what NWA is doing. I haven't been watching enough to really know what's going on with them, but I know they have their Hard Times pay-per-view coming up, and we know Ring of Honor is out of the picture. So there's been a lot of evolution going on here, especially with all the shows going back to touring. Now that we have crowds back, for the last 4 months, we're seeing significant changes. AEW has, done the most to capture the traditional wrestling audience. The generations, they would be the sons and daughters of the generations of old, and then the older fans that would have watched AWA on ESPN or World Class Championship Wrestling as a kid, like I was. They would have watched NWA or World Championship Wrestling on TBS, right? They would have watched ECW. That's what they would have done. Or they would have watched WWF before it changed to what it was in rock and wrestling. So all those people that came out of that, and then you're also being able to go and attach other stars that might be coming in with a different look or a different feel that could resonate, because it's kind of like cosplay and Comic-Con type of stuff for some of these stars as well, that the younger audience, you might be able to get an audience out of that will attach themselves and get engaged to what they're doing. So that's what they're doing now. And what they're doing is getting mainstream press. It's getting exposure. They're on a channel that everybody can watch. And they're doing all the right things. The Washington Post actually wrote about this back on November 5th. This is right after the third quarter earnings call. I didn't catch the story, but their business section actually talked about AEW is WWE's first real fight in decades. It may change the face of pro wrestling in the U.S. Well, the change is that what AEW's done. They've identified themselves as the leader in professional wrestling. They are the promotion that is doing professional wrestling as intended. Now, in the story, they go on to say that while WWE continues to be the pro wrestling juggernaut in business and pop culture, AEW sees the company as vulnerable. So AEW has largely gone the opposite direction so far, taking veteran performers known almost exclusively by diehard fans for their in-ring acumen and giving them time in front of a national audience. Compared with WWE, which has long promoted outside the ring theatrics and trash talking, AEW emphasizes more performance and skill inside the ring. While fans see both companies as popular alternatives to unscripted combat sports like the UFC, WWE has historically pushed hard into the theatrical aspect of its product. Both companies use a mix of scripted outcomes and dialogue with improvisational physical combat in the ring. Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer fame, he said in an interview that AEW's campaign to become the alternative to WWE has ushered in, quote, the most interesting and exciting time in professional wrestling since 1999. Quote, AEW should not be as close as they are right now to WWE, but they are there. Most people in the TV business would say Vince's philosophy is a better one than Tony's, so this truly is an experiment to see whether wrestling can be done from what WWE has done. Now, that's the part of the story there. And it's a long story, so if you want to look at it, I put it in the show notes so you can take a look at it for yourself. The other thing I got to talk about as well is what they're doing. You know, taking the two identifying factors of what AEW is doing. They're taking advantage of the veteran stars they have, but they're doing the right thing where in WCW, creative control was such an important thing and the high contracts all these stars had. The stars now are working with younger stars. Case in point, tonight, we get the first promo exchange between CM Punk and MJF. 20 minutes of glory. I mean, I could watch that segment over and over again. Pipe Bomb Part 2. Actually, it's Pipe Bomb versus Pipe Bomb. Because both of them laid haymakers on each other. It felt like a verbal fight of fisticuffs. I mean, some of the stuff that was said in that promo exchange was incredible. Shoot style promo. It was, the best promo work I've seen in years. In years. Just to go back into what they said. Punk called MJF a less famous Miz. There was a couple of times I just was like, I was shocked. Was shocked when I heard it. I was like, and listen, that crowd as they did it. You also did it in front of Chicago, which was just going to eat this up. And it was just, shock after shock. MJF called Punk nostalgia. Also called him PG Punk. And also that he's not the renegade and outsider. He's not here anymore. He should just preach hustle, loyalty, and respect. He was just going at him like John Cena. That shit was funny. Like, that's like the highlights right there of many highlights on that damn thing. Excellent. Excellent stuff. And that's the best part. It was incredible. Those guys laid out everything. It was just, I would absolutely, you watch it again. I'm going to find that YouTube clip. I'm going to bookmark it. And if I need to get myself into a mood, I can watch that damn promo, those two together all the time. Whew. Excellent stuff. A couple other things I want to bring up before we wrap things up because we're almost running out of time. Eric Bischoff. And this was something I was going to bring up. I didn't have time to talk about it last week. And it wasn't last week. It was just there wasn't time to talk about this all together. But Eric Bischoff made some comments about the company. He's not happy with the company right now, saying it's a creative, strategic, and chaotic mess. He said this on his 83 Weeks podcast. And that he's glad he's no longer with the company. This is what he said, quote, "What I'm about to say is my gut. Based on my short period of time being there a little over 2 years ago and what we all see on television, it's a mess. It's a creative, strategic, chaotic mess from what I could see outside looking in. You have people that were 1 or 2 round draft choices and poof, they're gone. No explanation, no understanding. I can also say I was working with Vince and the entire team every single day leading up to the launch of SmackDown on Fox. A big part of that, big focus was the draft. I am so glad I'm not there, or wasn't there going into the draft, because it was the most chaotic, unorganized mess I've ever seen. It's just a mess. It was very much a whim of the moment. There was some strategy involved. There were some debates in terms of the balance of town on one show or the next. You can also factor that USA had a voice in on that, whether it was technically or contractually or not. And Fox, which was a new relationship, also was in that. He said, quote, honest to God, there were changes being made during the actual draft. There were changes being made on live television. It was the most chaotic thing I've ever seen. I'm convinced that long-term planning, long-term strategy, creatively speaking, because business is different, because from a creative perspective, if there's a long-term strategy, it's a mystery to everybody other than the people who say there is. Now, Eric Bischoff cannot, I guess he could say that, but his company, which even when it wasn't in control, but the company he actually served for in WCW, they are also to blame for doing the same damn thing at the end of their run. I mean, Vince Russo was able to go and do that in some cases, and that wasn't helpful either. So, cannot necessarily cast a stone without hitting his own glass window as well, because he can also be to blame for some of the lack of continuity and things they were doing wrong when things got a little bit out of control, because they couldn't do anything about the creative control and the contracts of these bigger stars and what some of the decisions that were made that didn't make any sense either. So, he's not wrong, but he's also not without his own mistakes. Let's just say that. Roman Reigns was on the Michael Kay show to promote Survivor Series, and one of the things he was asked about was John Cena and The Rock had phenomenal movie careers so far. You've dipped your toe into it. You're a handsome guy, great voice. When do you make that full-time leap, he says. Now, he says that I'm sure, that he might want to dabble in. He definitely wants to go and definitely give him more. He says, WWE has done so right by me. They give me so much, placed me in so many great blessings and opportunities in front of me that I had to capture them. I had to grab that ball and run with it. You have to get to a point where you can transition, you can connect and create new, fresh, evolved content for your fan base, your supporters. I think I have the ability to do that. At the end of the day, it's about getting into that game, being thrown into that fire, and seeing how you do. I have a pretty good track record with being thrown into the deep end, and if that was what happens in Hollywood, I'm looking to swim. So he probably will transition full-time to Hollywood. There's no doubt about that. That, just down the line, that's a pretty safe bet. The Joe and I will be marqueing and headlining some movies down the line. Who knows what, but keep an eye out for it. Okay, there was one other story I want to just take a quick comment from the Sportster. WWE can make new superstars, but they don't want to. So I'm going to just take a couple of things real quick from this. They mentioned that superstars and personalities define companies and generations, and while WWE is at the top of the mountain of the current landscape, it's also been under fire for a singular reason, to a larger extent that the other issues all tie into the same. So the last superstar to emerge from the corporate machine was John Cena, but ever since then, they deliberately refused to churn out future superstars. And, this story goes on to say, nobody expects WWE to wave a magic wand and recreate the epicness of stars like Austin and Rock, but they've refused to create new superstars over the past decade. Even Roman Reigns is victim to this, as he didn't even book him the winner over Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31 and 34 when he should have. There's more on that, but I'll go ahead and tell you to go and read about that. Now, the other thing I got to make mention of, which, look, everybody else talked about as the main story on their shows this week, I didn't. You know what? I feel good that I didn't. So we know that on Monday Night Raw, well, I wasn't even on the air. I wasn't as of, what happened with Seth Rollins getting attacked during Monday Night Raw after the taping, well, that was something that happened, but I never got a chance to comment about it. Well, we've had new revelations about what happened here and what came up. So the fact that he tackled Seth Rollins on the rampway at Barclays Center Monday night was apparently due to an apparent catfishing. So a pro wrestling fan attacked Seth Rollins on live TV on Monday night after he fell for an internet scam. So an imposter pretending to be the superstar was catfishing him. So let's get into the story of that. 24-year-old Elisha Spencer was arrested Monday night, charged with attempted assault and attempted violation of arts and cultural affairs, disrupting a live sporting event. So now, on the Instagram stories of Spencer, who Mashable.com, I'm reading from the story, they found out about his page. He put up a slew of screenshots via Instagram stories that claims that he had interaction with Seth Rollins via chats on online platforms such as WhatsApp and Google Hangouts. In the messages, Spencer appears to believe he's actually engaging with the real Seth Rollins, but he's not. Now, the WhatsApp account displays the username Seth Rollins, but that's not the performer's real name. It's actually Colby Lopez. In messages that Spencer says are for 2019, this fake Seth Rollins asks Spencer if he can borrow money as he's trying to get in touch with his wife, Becky Lynch. God. It's unclear whether this account gives for why he's asking a stranger online to send him money. It's also unclear if Spencer sent him money and if so, how much. The messages follow patterns often found in online money order and bank check scams. In another conversation, this account tells Spencer he will send him a check. And Spencer would be told to cash the check and send a certain amount to another individual. As for the leftover sum, Spencer could keep it, a reward for helping out this fake Rollins. We've all heard this before, but the actual fact of the matter is that this scam, this guy actually believed it, this 24-year-old fan, and that he decided to go and take out his rage over a fake catfishing account on Seth Rollins, the actual performer. Wow. And that's what happened to this. It's incredible. And it's not the first time someone was apparently catfished by a scammer pretending to be Seth Rollins. Another one was a woman who showed up to his house twice with the intent to be in a relationship with him after being catfished by a fake Seth. And Seth Rollins in 2019 actually spoke about how he's aware of many imposters who try to scam people by pretending to be him. And that's one of the things that happened there. It's like, that's another story that's like confounding. But, you know, as for how Seth Rollins handled it, I think Bully Ray on Busted Open on Tuesday pretty much explained it pretty well. And for those that didn't think that Seth Rollins didn't do anything to attack back when attacked upon, well, he did get a kick in on Elisha Spencer before he was taken by the referees and detained and brought down. So, I mean, you know, everything is semantics. Everything is all brought forward. Seth Rollins, according to Bully Ray, was a complete professional, keeping his composure throughout, and I absolutely agree. Why have the need for potential lawsuits or any kind of civil, you know, litigation that could come from a thing like this? That the way the situation was handled, even with him doing the promo out there afterward, talking about, like, you know, playing up his heel persona, that's only good. So I can't really make any real commentary outside of that. I thought it was totally fine. Everything was handled very well. And sure, you could compare it to the Bret Hart Hall of Fame speech, but that's also somebody getting into the ring. Like, I mean, really a pure breach, which, by the way, somebody should have never been able to get into the ring like that, but they did. Like, that's where you get a real warranting of something happening right there. And sure, could he have had a weapon? Yeah, that could have happened as well. But that's where you hope that the venue actually does their part of using metal detectors or real safety measures to check people out and make sure they're not bringing anything that's unwarranted into the building. So that's the other part too. Okay, I went past an hour. I did it. Enjoy this for the Thanksgiving weekend. We'll come back next week and we'll get started on, we'll talk a little bit about by next week, I'm pretty sure we'll get to trying to talk a little bit about the end of Ring of Honor. And I think next week we'll begin starting their, kind of the retrospective on the year of wrestling that was 2021, where there's a lot behind it. I'll start that next week here on the program. So until next week, come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.